The NFL trade deadline is coming up tomorrow, 1 p.m. The NFL trade deadline is coming up tomorrow afternoon, November 1st, and the Vikings, 6-1, getting it done, sitting atop the NFC North division, number 2 seed currently in the NFC. They need to be buyers at the trade deadline. You need to go all in because this has a chance to be a very special team. Now, the Vikings don't necessarily have any glaring needs, but that's okay. You can have as many dudes who can get the quarterback as possible. You can't have enough cornerbacks. You can't have enough playmakers on offense. Maybe you need a right guard. I don't know. But trust Kwesi. I love that he is very aggressive, and I think the Vikings could and should make a couple moves if the price is right, getting after, man. So we got 10 NFL trade deadline, just minor suggestions that Kwesi can take to the bank or not. First off, outside linebacker Bradley Chubb coming in from the Broncos. Yes, the familiarity with Donatell. Donatell was the D coordinator in Denver for a hot second, but Bradley Chubb, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be a first plus because Bradley Chubb is playing on his fifth-year option, 2018 number 5 overall pick, 28 pressures, 5.5 sacks this season. The pride of NC State, former teammates with Garrett Bradbury. And Bradley Chubb is one of the guys that is perfect for the scheme, is young. You can build around him for the future. And, with the Za'Darius has been awesome this year. He's a little bit longer in the tooth. Danielle Hunter, who knows if he's going to be here after the season. Plus, not a perfect scheme fit, unlike Bradley Chubb. And even though, yes, I love Patrick Jones second, yes, I love DJ Wanham, getting as many dudes who can get the passer as possible is paramount for the Vikings at this stage. Because look at the Rams last year when they brought in Von Miller, Bradley Chubb's former teammate in Denver. All of a sudden, that was just there was a smoldering pile of ashes. All of a sudden, Von Miller, gasoline with that pass rush, did phenomenal things, helped them win a Super Bowl. And now Von Miller's out in Buffalo doing similar things. So getting Bradley Chubb as not only for this season, and yes, you would have to pay him, but for the future, I have to raise an eyebrow. Next up, trade target number 2 for the Vikings, Isaiah Wynn of the Patriots. Now, my toxic trade, by the way, we have 12 names listed here. Spoiler alert. Supposed to be like that. It's 10. Promise me there's not 2 more. But Isaiah Wynn of the Patriots. So my toxic trait is staying in love with guys that I liked in the draft a lot. And I loved Isaiah Wynn coming out of Georgia. I did not care that he was 6'2", and that's not an acceptable height for an NFL tackle. His first 3 seasons in the league, he's done great things. 2018 first-round pick. But this year, this series struggled, and he's been benched at times with the Patriots. Now, I think a fresh start could certainly help him, and the Vikings are obviously solid at tackle, but Isaiah Wynn, I do believe, could kick inside to guard. So whether it's spelling Ed Ingram, whether it's this, whether it's that, or the other thing, but bottom line, you can improve this rooster because I do like Isaiah Wynn over Blake Brandel, over Austin Schlamm. And again, no disrespect to them, but it's Isaiah Wynn, man, who's shown that he can play at an extremely high level, and getting him for low compensation. Kwesi, that's one of the moves that Kwesi has already done, whether it's picking up Ross Blacklock, the former second-round pick from the Texans, or picking up Jalen Reagor, the former first-round pick from the Eagles. He likes undervalued assets at a bargain that could be low-risk, high-return. Next up, number 3. Brian Burns. So this is a high risk, potential high return, man. But Brian Burns, I loved at Florida State. He was the freaking size of a safety. He played at like 240 in Tallahassee, but he's just getting it done. He's one of the better young premier edge rushers in the game. 2021 Pro Bowler, 33 pressures, 5 sacks this season. And Carolina, now reportedly, they've turned down 2 firsts. But is it going to have to be 2 firsts and a third, 2 firsts and a fourth, something like that? It's possible, but I would consider it. I would absolutely consider it. Brian Burns and Bradley Chubb, just 2 dudes that I just adore. Like 2 great young studs in this league. Next up, number 4. Chase Claypool. So we did a video on Claypool last week, but the rumors are that the Vikings making some calls because Kwesi needs to make calls on every single one of these players. Otherwise, he's not doing his job. But Claypool with the Steelers sort of fell out of favor as you got Deontay Johnson. You got George Pickens coming out of Georgia. But Claypool in year 3, I mean, he's still a monster. 6'4", 230, 4'4", 240. And yes, there's some maturity issues. Yes, celebrating first down while your team is trying to get up to and clock get up on the ball and clock it, all those issues. But I think that the Vikings have built a locker room and a culture led by great veteran leadership that could get Chase Claypool in line. So, hey, you want to be part of this or not? All right, so get on the train or get off. And I think that Claypool would have a chance to have a career resurrection here. He's in year 3, man. Also, he's from Canada. Oh, Canada, which is basically Vikings country. Next up, Buccaneers slot cornerback Sean Murphy-Bunting. Now, again, going back to, I love these guys in the draft, but Murphy-Bunting, second-round pick out of Central Michigan in 2019, phenomenal in the slot. Now, for some reason, he's fallen out of favor this year. Todd Bowles took over as head coach, still their defensive play caller. But Murphy-Bunting, even though he played a pretty solid role in the Bucs Super Bowl season, and he just hasn't really gotten the time of day this year. So potentially picking him up, and he could be an upgrade over Sean Dunn slot, even though respect, Sullivan's done pretty well. But having a young guy in there that could be part of the long-term defense certainly would be appealing. Next up, player number 6. Elton Jenkins. That's right. So the Packers lost 4 games in a row. They're slipping. They're falling. They can't get up. And maybe it's time for the Packers to be sellers at the deadline. Maybe it's time for them to clean house. Now, I understand that they don't want to trade in division, but guess what? You already traded in division when the Vikings moved down from 34, so they could go up and get Christian Watson, and the Vikings got 2 second-round picks out of the deal. But I loved Elton Jenkins in the draft. Personally, I would have been okay if they would have gone Jenkins over Bradbury, but it sort of is what it is. But the pride in Mississippi State, who I think if they just played him at center would be a Pro Bowler, All-Pro, but they got him playing all over the place. I think that he's an extremely solid guard. They have him playing a right tackle for now, which he's fine, but I think he's better on the interior. So this would be hey, Ed Ingram, we're going to let you take a breather for a couple of games. Elton Jenkins is going to be planted in at right guard. And if we don't re-sign Bradbury, Elton Jenkins, you're going to take over at center. It's one of those spots. I would be fine dealing a first and some change in division, yes, with the Packers to go get Elton Jenkins. Elton Jenkins is just an absolute stud, man. Next up, player number, what are we on? 7? There you go, nailed it. Wide receiver Denzel Mims. Oh, yeah, the other receiver for the Jets. Not Elijah Moore, but Denzel Mims, the former 2020 second-round pick coming out of Baylor, 6'3", 207, 4'3", 40. Again, he's like a diet version of Claypool where he's got all the physical tools, but he just hasn't really gotten it going with the new regime with the Jets over the last couple seasons. So, I mean, Mims fits the profile. And maybe Kwesi's just trying to get all of the 2020 wide receivers because you got Jefferson, you got Rager, you got KJ, and now get Denzel Mims. Because why the hell not? Next up, player that we've talked about in trades already, tight end Mike Gesicki. So could it take a second round plus? So Gesicki's playing on the franchise tag right now. You have to clear up some cap space or have the Dolphins eat it. But, Gesicki, not really about that blocking life. And Mike McDaniel coming from the Shanahan scheme, tight end's got to block. And Gesicki really is more of a tall wide receiver, but I think that he would add a very interesting wrinkle to the Vikings offense. 21 catches, 235, 4 touchdowns this season. Has had back-to-back 700-yard receiving seasons before McDaniel got there. He did have 2 touchdowns versus the Vikings. He had a touchdown Sunday against the Lions, and I think that he is a matchup nightmare. I think you need to see him just as like a tall receiver versus a tight end because he's not going to be inline blocking the way that Munt is, the way that Irv Smith Jr. is, etc. But he could be a very interesting piece to this offense for Kevin O'Connell. Next up, player number 9, defensive end Jerry Hughes. Now, this is of the less sexy, shiny objects trade options, but Jerry Hughes still doing it at 34 years old. He's back home with the Texans, former first-round pick by the Colts. Had a great stretch there with the Bills, but he has 5 sacks this season, a number of pressures, can play hand in the dirt, can play stand-up, can play 4-3, 3-4. He's really scheme agnostic, and this would be like a diet version of when the Rams brought in Von Miller last year. Because Jerry Hughes, like, he can play 15, 18 snaps a game, still get you a pass rush. He could still be that guy. Lastly, wink, number 10, Justin Tucker. Don't care. And, of course, this is just prisoner of the moment, recency bias, and I'm sure Greg Joseph will be fine. But would you trade a first-round pick for Justin Tucker right now? I might consider it. Even though Justin Tucker is 32, he's just absolute nail drivers. You know that he's not going to fold in the clutch, and you can trust him to make PATs to make it a 2-score game. Not that I'm bitter. And then, lastly, 2 more. So you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Patrick Peterson having a career renaissance. Cameron Dantzler, I think, is a stud. Then you got Evans. Then you got Andrew Booth Jr. waiting in the wings. But what if I told you could add a dude who is already at the peak of their profession right now? Like J.C. Horn, even though he's been dealing with injuries from the Panthers. Patrick Surtain II is already one of the better young corners in the league. Yes, it's going to be expensive. Probably 2 firsts and a third minimum. I would not care. I would not care in the slightest, because this is going to be a late first-round pick. Next year's going to be a late first-round pick, and you're going to be taking guys that you hope are a fraction of the player that J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain are. So, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts, man. Let's get nuts. But I absolutely love the NFL trade deadline. Plus, I know people are going to say, like, oh, why would the Packers trade Elton Jenkins? Because the Packers are dead. They're deceased. They have ceased to be. It's fun, man. But your thoughts are thoughts. NFL trade deadline targets. We got a dozen the Vikings need to go after. Trade for all of them. Why the hell not, man? But your thoughts are thoughts. Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. We'll support the work. Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.